Good morning, and many thanks for joining our webinar today. My name's Richard Bates. I'm Sales Director for EBS. For those of you that don't know us, we're electronic business systems based just outside of Birmingham, near Spaghetti Junction. We've been established for over 40 years, and we're a long-standing Sage partner. And we also partner with Sicon, who we're joined today with Steve Jemmett, the Sales Director. So today we're going to be looking at shop floor data capture. And running you through what this is, how it works, and how it can potentially benefit your business. So without further ado, I'll pass you over to Steve, who's going to share his screen and yeah, show you how everything works.
That's great. Thanks very much, Richard. And good morning, everybody. Appreciate your time. So first things first, let's just check that the technology is working. So Richard, can you see my screen?
Yes, that's coming through.
Perfect. Well, I will turn my camera off because nobody wants to see that, and we will start with the presentation. So just in terms of who Sicon are, you may or may not be aware of us. We are classified by Sage as an ISV or an independent software vendor. Essentially, we're accredited to create add-ons for Sage 200, something which the business has been doing for in excess of 20 years, and we only develop for Sage 200. Now, feel free to visit at the Sicon website. There's lots of rich information there, and on there you'll see all of our add-ons. We're quite greedy on there, but the one we're going to focus on today is the shop floor data capture. And feel free, as I said, to drill down on the website where there's a high-level video, but also some the helping user guides with screenshots and descriptions of the various different features. So what is shop floor data capture, and I suppose what is it aimed at? So it's a module that we designed to complement our work sort of processing solution and our projects to allow typically, I guess, your production floor to easily clock on and clock off of operations to capture real time what they're working on. Now, there's actually two sides to shop floor. There's the side which would be capturing time against these operations, but there's also then a time and attendance piece as well. So being able to capture as people clock into the building. So what do you need in order to get this up and running? Well, we use the Sage 200 database to hold all of that information. We've then got a web API that would be installed, and you'll need an Android device with the Sicon shop floor data capture app installed, and then your shop floor named users from a licensing perspective. What happens is the app via, no doubt it would be your Wi-Fi, will connect to the web API, which in turn is going to be pushing and pulling information real time into Sage. So it's using modern technology, nice and easy. A lot of us can use apps now to be able to access that information. So first things first, the setup. So with this installed inside of Sage, you'll have a shop floor data capture folder here. Lots of different maintenance. First things first, I just want to come into is the settings. So again, you'll need your enable strings. So are you going to be using shop floor and all the time and attendance? We've got QR codes to be able to download the app to your Android device. And I will talk a bit more about Android devices later. And then your web API link. And then we've got a number of settings. So for example, here with the shop floor, I've got it enabled. We can have things like auto logout. Do we want to use work patterns? So to be able to track the cost rates, for example. Do we want the time and attendance? So again, I've got that enabled. Are we going to link to works orders and projects as well? So there's a number of settings in there to begin with. Things like bank holidays, we can set the UK defaults in there, so they're going to be added in should we wish. We've got the concept of work patterns, as I mentioned, which you can then assign to teams, and being able to set different locations from a time and attendance perspective, as well as leave reasons. So why am I leaving the building? And it's actually something that we use in-house here in each of the office locations that we have. Finally, a little bit, just whilst we're in the settings here, it's going to be maintaining your employees. So you'll set up all of your employees within the system. So there's myself today, what your unique PIN number is. So again, each user would have a unique PIN, but again, we'll talk a bit about the options for logging in shortly. And if we are going to use work patterns, what my work patterns are going to be. So that's the first bit. We've then got some inquiries, but again, we'll come back to those shortly. So let's just have a look and see what it actually looks like. Now, I'm actually running this on my JM Prime C1 barcoding device, so it's an all-in-one, but it can run on any Android system. And if I scroll down, obviously the bigger screen, you can fit more information in there. Now, downstairs in our office, as I mentioned, we've actually from a company called JM Prime, so we don't get involved with the hardware. That's something which I know Darren and Richard and the team at EBS can certainly support you with. But they do a 10.1-inch Android device, which is actually power over Ethernet. It's Visa mountable if you wish. You can plug in a USB Bluetooth scanner, but it could be something like an Android A7, sorry, Samsung A7 Android device with a Bluetooth barcode scanner if you wanted to scan barcodes, which again we'll talk about shortly. Now, depending on what version you've got, the interface looks the same, and I can log in. So I've got my PIN. So as I enter in my unique PIN, it recognizes who I am. Now, again, I should point out today, I'm actually connected to our guest Wi-Fi in the office, to the web API, to a server with Sage on, which is not in the same vicinity. So I'm actually doing this over the internet, and you can see how quick that connected there. Now, in terms of other options, if you've got a device that can read NFC tags, we've got some clients using that, so you'd need to buy NFC tags, get them set up. But again, because essentially it's linking back to that pin, I could just tap my tag. As long as it recognises who I am, it could log in. Alternative, I've mentioned barcodes a couple of times. We've got another option where you could print off barcode labels with a barcode from my well thought out pin of 1111 today, and have that as a user's barcode, and they simply scan their badge and it recognises them. So a number of ways of logging in. Now, as I come in, I can select the location. So I'm going to work in the main warehouse, and I can just say I'm here. So again, for us, as I come through the building, I clock in. Now, I'm actually just going to just log out for a moment, because one of the features that we do have on the time and attendance side, you can see the little fire hose there, is very quickly being able to, on the device, seeing who is clocked into the building and when they clocked in. So again, nice feature there, very simple as people clock in, but where are they in the building? So that's the first part. So as I sign in, again, I'm not going to leave, I'm just going to carry on. And these are the options here. So as I mentioned, it is going to be linked to works orders or projects from this side, but it's tied into the operations. So what does that mean in reality? So from an operations perspective, what we're talking about, if I pick up my bill of materials from a Sage perspective, if I come into my Crown A item here and under operations, exactly this is what we're saying. We're going to clock into these operations, so against the resources, and it could be labor and or machine resources as well. So if I load up one of my purchase orders, works orders, we'll just have a quick look at one of those. We'll pick this one at the bottom here today. So for those of you who may not have seen this, this is the Sicon works order processing module. So here's an example of a works order. There's the operations, and what we're able to see is how far through the process we are. We've also then got the estimated labor. One option we do have as well, we can print off a route card. So there's a couple of different ways to be able to clock onto the shop floor. So if I just minimize all of these, go to my spooler, and I load up my route card, these barcodes on this route card are unique to that specific works order. And if I bring up my device, I now have a couple of options. So option number one is I don't need to have a route card. You don't have to have paper, although a lot of people do. I can simply log in, click on the works order list. I know that I'm going to be working on works order 177. I could search at the top, and I could tap on that, and it will take me to the top, find the operation, and away I go. But the benefit of having the barcodes, again, it's about speeding up that process for your end users. So, for example, if I just scan this barcode at the top here, that will take me to the header of the works order. And again, this is doing this over our guest Wi-Fi, connected to Sage, and we can now see the works order, what we're creating, how far through the process we are so far, and the due dates as well. As I click on the operations, we can see where we are against those operations. And then finally, we do have a materials tab. So it's a great way. You do have to allocate the stock, but we can enable your production person to say, okay, I'm ready now to consume. So long as we've allocated, I could then click on those stock items and consume them. Alternatively, I could click on the plus and add some additional stock items that I've had to use as well. So again, using technology to update that rather than bits of paper. The second option that I've got is rather than scan the header, I can just scan the specific operation that I should be working on. And again, these are unique. And as I click on the operation, you can see at the bottom there might be some notes for me. I can see the time that I've got, and I can just click on start. That started the clock, and I can now log out. So actually what's happening in that instance, if we come back into Sage, and we look at our works order, I'll just refresh this. What it's doing now at this point is it's updated, and we can see instantly Steve Gemmett, whilst there isn't any time recorded because we haven't got an end time yet, but I'm actually working on that specific operation. And we can take that one step further. So with the inclusion of shop floor and the works order processing, we've got the concept of these new dashboards that we've added in the system. And one of those, if I just pick up here, shop floor data capture current activity, and I load the dashboard, we'll be able to see in a moment who's clocked onto what. And there you go. So I clocked on 10:42 this morning. That's the employee, what team I'm in, what operation I'm working on, with the details, the quantity I should be making, what I've completed so far. So again, it might be I'm making 50, and actually I've completed 30 of those, and I've gone for a break, and now I've started the operation again. But we've got a live view of who's working on what. Now, if we come back into the handout, so again, some customers, they'll have one Android device per production lane, for example, or they might even just have one at either end of the warehouse. It really depends on your setup. But again, I'm not tied to a specific device, so I just find a device, so long as it's connected to that Sage company and I've got a user login, I can simply log back in. At this stage, it's going to ask me, what am I doing? I'm carrying on working. And you can see the third option down there is my user activity. So I can now clock onto this. And probably the first time in my career, I'm actually going to have completed something early. So I'm going to say, yep, I'm stopping and pausing. Now, at this point, I've got two options. It may be that I'm going for a coffee break, or I'm going for lunch, or it might be the end of the day, in which case I could hit the stop pause activity. It will ask me why I'm pausing, but then I can tell the system how many I've made so far. Alternatively, I've fully completed that first operation. So fully complete, that then disappears, and I could clock onto the next operation, or I could clock onto a different works order again, depending on what it is that I'm doing. Now, if I come back to my works order and we just refresh again, it's at this point where we're going to now see, as I select on there, the actual time and the actual cost for this. So not only have we got the estimate, we can compare now what the actual time was. And it might be that Richard clocks on. It could be a couple of us are working on this. You've got the actual labor rather than added it in manually. And if I just edit, what it's actually doing is it's filling in my centralized timesheet. So again, what we can see now is works order 177. We've got the runtime in there. And if I just click down here, I started at 10:42 and I finished 2 minutes later. Let's say a miracle for me. Okay, so that's the principle behind it. Nice and simple, and updating and capturing those details. So as we go through, the other thing that it's also done now is if I go to the operations, we can now see that we've completed the first one, so we know we're on to the subsequent operation there as we go through all the way down to the bottom. We even have within the system the ability now to create inspection operations. where I can answer questions. So if I go back into my bill of materials for a moment and we look at my crown A and we look at that particular inspection operation, what we can do, so this is Sicon's bit that we've added. So I flagged that as an inspection and we can have some inspection questions. So again, they could be, I've got answer types of yes, no. It wants me to answer a number. That could be, I could choose from a selection. So you could have multiple different questions and you can have multiple inspection operations at different points in the process. So again, being able to capture that information digitally, and because that's in the Sage database, enabling you to add that to reports. And again, that's where Darren and Richard and the team at EBS come in, supporting you with those bespoke reports. So what does that look like inside of the works order? So again, as we go through and we get to that operation at the appropriate time, we would then see in here what those answers are. And in this instance, just check and bearing what's the unit of measure. So those would be filled in direct from the shop floor handheld as we get to that particular point. Okay, what else can we do on here? So that's for works orders, and that's the vast majority of customers would use it for this. But you'll notice below that we've got projects. So this is for customers who've got Sicon projects, enabling users to be able to clock onto those same operations, but within a project's perspective. So what we've added in with Sicon projects is, and if I find, so I didn't want my employee list, if I just find one of my projects, just to give you an example, what we can do, just wait for this to load, is against our project levels at the most granular level, we can set operations at that particular level. So we've got some customers using Sicon projects with the structures and that for their bespoke manufacturing process as well. So again, plenty of flexibility. Obviously, every customer is different, every situation is different, but this does enable you again to, and it could just be, you know, it is a project, but we're kitting things together as part of that project, whatever that would be. We can create this operation when that's going to be scheduled, and we can allow a user to be able to clock onto that. Again, within the reports, we've got a route card that you can produce, but from the handheld, obviously, if you haven't got projects, you know, it won't appear, or you can, or it might be you don't have works orders, which are the right one, but I can then find the appropriate project. So as I start to search, so I know where's my project number 37. That doesn't really matter, whichever one it is there, and I can find my job number 37, and then whereabouts in there that I'm going to be working. Again, you can see how I'm just tapping on the screen. If you had a route card, I could just jump straight to that particular operation, and then from there I can actually I've already completed that one. I could create and start to record time against that particular operation. So a multi-use tool. Couple of other things that we have. You'll notice multi-start. So again, it's an option in there where we can allow, I can start on multiple operations. So if you've got a user who perhaps is working on 2 or 3 production lines, you can enable them to clock onto those different production lines. Now I'm going to do simple maths. Darren's running three different operations. He runs those for 3 hours. When you complete it, then of course it's going to book an hour to each of those as well. So that's the shop floor piece in its simplicity. The last thing to note then is just to cover back on the time and attendance. So we've already seen that from the device. I can click on the hose and be able to what do you call it, the extinguisher icon, and see who's in the building. Now I actually think that's quite important because I was in a previous life I was a fire marshal for a business. We had 120 or so employees in that office, and it was my job to print off the fire list. Now we didn't have digital displays, it was all hardwired in, so I'd have to go up to the 3rd floor with a very slow printer, and I'll be perfectly frank, it was fine in the drills that we ran, but yeah, not the greatest experience I would imagine if the building was on fire. So in terms of this, because it's using technology, If it's connected to your Wi-Fi, we could pick up the device if it has a battery, or you know, have a device with a battery. As long as you can connect to the internet in order to be able to see the web API, you can then see who should be clocked in and start to do your roll calls. But if we come back into Sage and we have a quick look at some of the other options there, we can do things like view the current clock-ins. So if we look at our main warehouse location, we can see I've got a number of different clock-ins where people haven't, but there you go. That's my current clock-in. We can see timesheet clock-in lines as well. So if I pick the week start date as being this week, we can also see here that it's filling in a separate sort of timesheet area in terms of my clock-ins. So again, this is a great way, just being able to track what time people are in, what time people leave as well. So storing that information. And probably most important is the option to be able to amend those. So I'm sure we're always going to have a user who forgets to clock out. Yeah, I've certainly done that a couple of times. So just enabling somebody with that privilege to be able to adjust that. But perhaps I get to the end of the day and I'm ready to clock out. Well, I can just simply click on time and attendance leave. Now, I've set up a couple of examples. So I've got doctors, dentist, I've got illness, whatever your reasons would be. And I can just say, well, okay, actually, I'm going to take an early lunch, click on lunch, and now I'm clocked out of the building. Just to prove that point, if I click on the extinguisher, there's nobody clocked in. So just to summarize, a nice, easy module, very powerful in terms of what it's doing, runs on an Android device. You don't have to be tied to a specific Android device. You know, you might have a few scattered around, as long as they're all connected to the Sage company that I've got to log in. I could go to any one of those, enter my PIN, and then I can do the work that I need. In terms of the clock in, yeah, you've got a unique PIN, but there's different ways that we explored there. For customers who have the Sicon work sort of processing, I can clock on to operations either by scanning a route card if I've got a barcode scanner connected to it, or I could just search for it and then just tap on the screen. It also links into projects, and there is an option, as we said, for time and attendance. Just again, a nice simple one as you come into the building, just having a device. You know, it's not access control. It's not going to digitally magnetize your doors or anything like that. You'd need to probably look for a dedicated solution, but our USP there is, again, it all ties into your central Sage database. So hopefully that gives you an idea of what it does. I will just refer you back to the Sicon website, sicon.co.uk. Feel free to have a click on there, drill down, look at the help and user guide where you've got those screenshots. So for example, there we talked about inspection, so being able to see those questions on there and where it's going to drill back. But if you have got any questions, field those to Darren and Richard and the team at EBS. And if you want a tailored demonstration for yourselves, again, just let us know. We can get something booked in. So I guess, Richard, I'm done. That's all I wanted to do. I don't know if you've got any questions at all for me today, but if not, just want to say thank you to everybody for watching, and hopefully speak to you soon.
Brilliant, Steve. Thanks ever so much. And 6 minutes under time as well, so it's really appreciated. I think just a really good overview there of everything that shop floor data capture can offer. And as you can see, very easy to use and can add a lot of value to the business. So just, yeah, as Steve said, any questions, feel free to reach out to any of us here at Electronic Business Systems, and we'll be happy to assist and provide a customized demo if necessary. Thanks ever so much, everybody.